Okay, I think we're into part two. So, yeah, as I was saying, interviews with Rob Grant for the first time. Also on here you get the remastered versions. After George Lucas did the remastered Star Wars movies in '97, Red Dwarf jumped on the bandwagon and actually remastered series 1 to 3. Gave them they took away the initial slow opening and gave them an opening more consistent with the subsequent series from series 3 onwards. Rejigged the special effects, made them more CGI, and souped up the sound, gave it a more filmic look. The idea was to promote the show more in America, make it more consistent, more up to date, because at the time they were trying to get the movie made. I'm sure I'm going to touch a lot on the movie in the future. The movie doesn't exist, but it was sort of tantalisingly dangled in our face for years and years. So you get the series 1 to 3 remastered. Like the special editions of Star Wars, they are quite unpopular with fans, but for a completist you've got to have them. And then on the odd episodes on this you actually get commentaries from Doug Naylor and Ed Bye, which is nice to hear, because although series 1 to 8 has commentaries from the cast, Doug Naylor's been a bit sparing with his commentaries. He did a commentary on Back to Earth, and he's done 1 or 2 commentaries on here. But the main draw for me on here was the reason it's called the Body Snatcher Collection is because Body Snatcher was an episode that the writers wrote for series 1 that they never produced, and because they never actually finished, they never actually wrote the final 5 minutes of the episode. So on here they've written the final episode. They have Chris Barry basically narrate the script and have it all storyboarded, and then there's commentaries from Rob Grant and Doug Naylor on this, which is just a pleasure to hear, because if you know the production history, they no longer work together now, and it was nice to hear them together and chatting about the show and how they got on. That was a little mini review of that, but that's a really good collection. I would say it's strictly for the fans, but I am a fan, so that gets top marks for me. And this is also yes, I'm a little embarrassed to own, but yes, I own this. Red Dwarf Beat the Geek. It's an interactive quiz show where the two Hollies. Because Norman Lovett was replaced after series 2 by Hattie Hatridge. That's another thing that's explained in this crawl. That Holly goes through a sex change, and his name actually makes sense. It's weird because I didn't really start when I was a kid. I didn't really start watching the show avidly till series 4, so it kind of made sense to me that Holly was a woman, because Holly's a woman's name. I was always a bit confused when I went back and watched the previous series, and I thought, well, Holly's a man. Why has he got a woman's name? Because he's still, well, it's Holly Johnson, and it's supposed to be Hal, or a version of Hal, a comedic version. So that's the DVDs. I had to root around in the attic just to see if I could find some stuff. Not as much as I wanted to find. That was something I forgot about. Signed picture from Norman Lovett there. I did meet Chris Barry on the same day, but that was Chris Barry's chunky period. But I didn't get his autograph. From about 1997 to probably about 2003, I was a member of the official Red Dwarf fan club. This is when my mum sort of intervened, and she called me an anorak, and that's really where I tried to start to curtail my nerdy sensibilities. But yeah, I'm a member of the fan club, and if you remember, you got a quarterly fanzine called Better Than Life, named after, of course, series 2, episode 2, and the second novel as well. I wish I had more of these, actually, because I could only find 3. I think my subscription, I just let it slide in about 2003, but I know I was definitely getting it before Series 7 came out, because I used to pore over avidly to look for news on the new series. Again, pre-internet, this was my only source of information. To find out about the new series, to find out about new Series 7 and Series 8. I just remember the excitement when I found when they printed the episode titles for Series 7 and the writers as well for Series 7, because the big worry about Series 7 was it going to be any good, after Rob Grant had left. But seeing names like Kim Fuller and Robert Llewellyn wrote an episode, I thought, okay, maybe we're in safe hands. The one I'm disappointed I can't find, though, is, like I say, these are from 2002, 2003. I wish I had the one from the first quarter of 99, because that actually had reviews by myself of Series 8. I'm in an episode. I'm in the audience of an episode of Series 8, episode 5, Karate TV. If you so wish, you can listen to that episode and know that one of the people you hear laughing is myself. But so I felt I was qualified to write reviews on all the episodes, and I did. I remember slating a couple of them, but really praising a lot of them. So they used my reviews first. These. The Red Dwarf fans, I do find they're really nice people. They were really nice people that run the fan club. They hold a convention every year called Dimension Jump. That's the advert for Dimension Jump 9. I think they're on 25 now or something. I've never been to one, actually. I would like to go one year. I'm just looking for news. Where was it the thing that I read the other day? Oh yeah, here we go. So this is from issue 42, autumn 2002, and this is Movie News Latest. Latest news just in from the horse's mouth, so to speak, is that the movie is in pre-production at the moment. Charles Armitage, the producer, has said that pre-production should be starting in November, with Shepperton Studios seeing the arrival of designers and artists to start construction on the sets, storyboards and costumes. All this in readiness for filming to start at the beginning of March. With all the budgetary concerns, etc., now overcome, it's just a case of waiting for Chris Barry and Harvey Harrison, director of photography, to finish their stint on Tomb Raider 2, and we're rolling. More news as we get it. There wasn't any more news. I'll get on to the movie at a later date. I'm just going to show you a few things, though, I have found in my collection. So, I've got rid of a load of audio books, and so disappointingly, I don't have the audio books, because there were some Red Dwarf novels in existence. Actually, the one I have is that one, Last Human. This is technically the third novel. It's a solo work from Doug Naylor. Arguably my least favourite of the novels, if I'm honest. My favourite would be Better Than Life, the second one. But I also have the audiobook version. It's the only I have owned all the audiobooks in the past. But this is the only one that I still own, probably because it's falling apart and I was probably unable to sell it. Interestingly enough, this one, I forget why, but this one, you see the tapes there. But for some reason, I had to record one of them onto another tape. That's how much of a completist I was. I don't know why I had to do that. Maybe I was making a copy for a friend or something. I don't know. But I'd urge anyone to, if they're a fan of the show, to listen to the audiobooks if you're so inclined. If you're thinking of reading the books, great. But if you fancy listening to the audiobooks, listen to the first two because they're narrated by Chris Barry. Now, Chris Barry, of course, started out as a impressionist. As I said, he started on Spitting Image. If you're not watching an old episode of Spitting Image and you hear Ronald Reagan or Neil Kinnock, that's Chris Barry. Later on, Steve Coogan, interestingly enough, took over from Chris Barry in his impressions after Chris Barry left. And Steve Coogan can actually do Neil Kinnock and he can do Chris Barry's version of Neil Kinnock as well, which two slightly different impressions. But Chris Barry, he was the obvious choice to do the audiobook versions because he could do impressions of all the cast. He could do, well, obviously he could do Rimmer, but he could do Lister, it's the Loads. He could do Cat, wow. He could do Crichton, oh, another cup of tea, sir. He could do, and he can do Holly, oh, dudes. That should have added me. But Chris Barry had I had the complete audiobook versions and the abridged versions. I didn't have the radio show, which was just the audiobook again, but I think they put in sound effects and music. It wasn't technically a radio show. And I think you can find that on YouTube quite easily. But I really want to get my hands on the unabridged audiobooks because they really are a great listen. And interesting as well, just from a fan perspective, to hear things like the episode, the sort of recycle the episode Crichton in the first novel, but it's not. But listening to Chris Barry do it, he's doing it as Robert Llewellyn, not as David Ross. So you're hearing lines that you're used to hearing David Ross saying in Robert Llewellyn's voice almost. The same in the second book, they rejig the episode White Hole, but it's Chris Barry doing Norman Lovett saying lines that Hattie Hatridge said in the show. So interesting if you're a major obsessive like me, I guess. It's funny though that Last Human, they got Craig Charles in because Chris Barry went through a period where he actually left the show very briefly and then decided that he actually really enjoyed working on the show, so came back to work on it. That was in that sort of interim period is when Last Human and Rob Grant's solo novel Backwards came out. Interesting enough, the last two Red Dwarf novels are both actually sequels to the same book. It's funny that I can't think of many examples of that happening. Well, it's kind of happening in movies now, They're talking about doing, Terminator 6, which is going to be the second Terminator 3, really, and the new Halloween film is going to miss out the chronology from all the sequels. But again, didn't H2O do that? Sorry, why don't? Yes, and I don't have Rob backwards. But I remember lending it to someone I was at college with and never getting it back, which still teases me off to this day. I can't remember the guy's name, Michael something or other. If you're watching it, I still want my copy of Backwards back and my copy of Trainspotting, the book as well, if you've still got it. So yeah, but what's so interesting about the audiobook version is they got Craig Charles to do Last Human, and then Rob Grant himself did the audiobook version, which I also used to have. And they're obviously they were so enamoured by Chris Barry's performance that they both try and do impressions of the rest of the cast, yeah, with not great. Well, neither of them are impressionists, and at least Craig Charles should have just read the book straight. Shouldn't have been tempted to do impressions of the cast. He doesn't even do Lister that well, bizarrely enough. There's that. What else? I'm just gonna look at stuff randomly. That's Rob Grant's. After Backwards sold quite well, and Backwards is a really good book actually. It was more akin to the structure of the Better Than Life. I mean, I really like the Red Dwarf novels. I don't consider them to be just novelizations. I think they're novels in their own right because they expand on the characters and the plots in the novel, and sometimes completely change the plots as well. I will probably do separate reviews for all the novels at some point in the future because I think they're really good books. But yeah, so Rob Grant, after he published Backwards, he got a writing deal, and I think a 3-book writing deal, and this was the first one, and this was a must buy for me because it was Rob Grant doing comedy science fiction again. It's quite a funny book, but it's not Dwarf. It involves this character who, like in Red Dwarf, I think he's attacked on a spaceship, and he wakes up several generations later, and he's just a head in a jar. So he did that, and he did. This was set up for a sequel, but it never quite happened. It was that, and he did a book called Incompetence, all about a future where everyone's incompetent, but everyone has to have a job. Hardly the future anymore. And then his third novel was called Fat, and it was all that wasn't science fiction. And it was I never read actually Fat, but I'd be intrigued to track that one down. I think it's just about the modern obesity epidemic that was and is happening in the UK. So what have we here? So I also own Red Dwarf Infinity Welcomes Careful Drivers, the first novel. Love that. That's one of my favourite book covers ever. That's the omnibus that contains both Infinity and the sequel novel, Better Than Life, the 2 novels that were written by Rob Grant and Doug Naylor. They go by the moniker Grant Naylor. I try and make out it's one author. As you can see, that's a very well thumbed copy because genuinely, like, 2 of my favourite books of all time. Primordial Soup. Now this is it contains the scripts for introduction. No list. So you got Polymorph, Marooned, which is considered to have the best jokes in the series. Dimension Jump, of course, the first appearance of Race Rimmer. Justice, actually that's one of my favourites. Actually, I'm surprised that's in there. I think it's Back to Reality. Or is it Hollow Ship? Oh, no. Yes, Sirens, yes. Now that was interesting because this was meant to be published. The publication date for this was meant to be after the first broadcast of series one of episode one of series 6, but I think series 6 was put back, so this was published beforehand, and so it had you were able. This was really exciting, but you were able to read the script for the first episode of series 6 before it was broadcast. And of course, if you know the series, series 6 probably has the most gear shift in story in the whole series. It's the one where they've lost Red Dwarf and they've been chasing it for 200 years, and Lister wakes up. He's been in cryogenic stasis for 200 years, and he's got long hair and long fingernails, and so it's really exciting to find out what the direction they were going. A couple of years, this isn't as well thumbed as this, but for some reason, but a couple of years later you got Son of Soup, and this contained Gunmen of the Apocalypse, which might be my favourite episode, for the same reason that Back to the Future is part 3 is my favourite Back to the Future film. Joint first. Hollow Ship, which I think they put in because that was the episode that had the most cut out of it to get it down to 28 minutes. Camille, that's the episode that I really hooked me as a fan. Series 4 is really where I sort of started avidly watching the series. I remember the first episode I ever saw was Me Squared, from series 1, and then I don't remember ever seeing series 2. I remember catching like the last 5 minutes of series 3 because it was always on when I got home from Cubs, but from series 4 onwards is where I sort of, it became avid viewing, series 4 and 5. Series 6 I taped off the TV and watched it on repeat in the 3 years interim that I had to wait for series 7. And that's what really cemented me as an obsessive. Sorry, Backwards, which I've mentioned already, Crichton and Me Squared in that. There was a script book for the whole of Series 8. It was a bit sort of A4 size, well, bigger, maybe A3 size probably, and it had in introductions to each script by Doug Naylor. But I don't know. I've sort of scoured the house looking for that. That went to the car boot as well. I don't know, or it's languishing on my parents' bookshelves somewhere. I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm running out of things to show you. I did have lots more. I mean, I had. I had a book called The Making of Red Dwarf, which was essentially just a behind the scenes, but written up by a journalist. It's about so somebody spent a week on the set and just charted the process of making one of the shows. The show itself was actually Gunmen of the Apocalypse, the Western episode. Don't have that anymore. There was one I definitely had called Starlog, which was I think it was written by Paul Alexander, who also wrote a few episodes in Series 6 and Series 7. Series 7 and Series 8, or co-wrote them with Doug Naylor. There was, I think, I'm pretty sure Hattie Hatridge and Craig Charles have both written Red Dwarf books, but I never owned them. I did own The Man in the Rubber Mask by Robert Llewellyn, which was basically his memoir of making the series, or making series 3 to 6, I think it was, or 3 to 5 or 3 to 6. It's been a while since I read that. And I had a few other of his memoirs as well. He wrote one called Thin He Was and Filthy Haired, about when he was a young hippie. But yeah, all gone the way of things you sell at a car boot sale. I've got to wrap this up. I've talked too long. I didn't think this would be 2 videos, but hey ho. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say. If you've enjoyed this video, good. If you're in any way a Red Dwarf fan, please join me for my ramblings on the show itself, which will be coming over the next few weeks. It's something I've been wanting to get out of my system for a while, and this seemed like a perfect opportunity. Sadly, unlike most movie-based vloggers on YouTube, I will not be doing some Halloween-based horror movie reviews or that kind of thing this year, because Red Dwarf's just going to be the priority for the next 6 weeks, if you ask me. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there, folks. Thanks for bearing with me, if you've borne with me this long. And join me next time for my review of Series 1 and my thoughts on Series 12, Episode 1. And until then, I shall see you all out there in YouTube land. This is me, Big Buddha, signing off.